So today I'm going to be talking to you about the Chelsea chop. And you might say, well, I've heard of that, but I have no idea actually what it is, or you may never have heard of it. So I'm going to try and demystify exactly what it is and also show you how you can do the Chelsea chop on lots of your plants. So what is the Chelsea chop? Well, the Chelsea chop is a way of cutting back your plants, and the reason it's called the Chelsea chop is because it is done around the end of May, early June, which is usually the time of the RHS Chelsea Flower Show. So it's always a good way of remembering when it is the right time to prune back or cut back some of your plants. So basically, when we're talking about cutting back, we're talking about cutting back our later summer flowering perennials. So plants like asters, chrysanthemums, sedums, which are now called hylotelephium or something like that, quite a mouthful now. And the reason you do it is because you're cutting back, and it's a bit like pruning anything. When you cut back a hedge, when you mow your lawn, you are encouraging that plant to be bushy and compact. And what you're doing is you're taking out the leading shoot, and this is known as apical dominance. So all that means is that basically plants want to grow. They want to grow tall, they want to grow high, and so you're taking out that leader. And what that encourages your plant to do is send out lots more side shoots. So rather than going tall and straggly, you have a nice bushy, rounded, compact plant. Now often you'll get smaller flowers, but you tend to get more of them. So I have mentioned summer flowering perennials, but actually it's also really good to do on plants like this amazing geum here. Now this geum has been flowering her socks off for me for ages, but she is getting quite leggy, as you can see. It's going to be really, really hard, but I know if I cut quite a lot of this foliage back, what it's going to do is encourage more flowers, so I should get a second flush of flowering. And also I'm going to have amazing flowers to have indoors, and they just look beautiful in a vase. So other plants that benefit really well from having this Chelsea chop, apart from your perennials, are actually herbs. Now, of course, many herbs are seen as perennials, sub-shrubs, some of them, but ones like marjoram or oregano do really, really well from having a good chop, because they will come back really compact and bushy, and then they will start flowering, which is brilliant for all the pollinators in your garden. So what tools do you need for doing the Chelsea chop? Well, I mean, obviously you can use your secateurs, make sure they're sharp. You can use some smaller snips like these ones. If you've got a big, gorgeous billowing border full of asters and chrysanthemums and all those kind of plants that benefit really well from the Chelsea chop, then use something like these shears. Now they are amazing. Make sure they're really sharp, but this will get the job done really quickly, and you just get on with it. And then once it's done, take a deep breath and you'll feel pleased with yourself. What I always recommend is whenever you do any kind of pruning and cutting, especially if you've been doing a lot and you've had problems with disease, is give your secateurs or your snips or whatever a bit of a wash in some disinfectant, which I'm going to do here. It's always good practice to do that. So I'm just literally dipping it in some disinfectant, and then what I'm going to do, I haven't got any wire wool, but I'm going to use this and I'm just going to scrub out any rust or whatever's there. Gives it a really good clean. And then I'm going to give it a little spray with a bit of WD-40, making sure I don't spray it onto my plants. So the reason I'm doing this is it just means that my tools are going to be much easier to use, because often if you leave them in a damp shed, then they can rust and they get really hard to move. I just wish I could use WD-40 on my joints, I must admit. So I have a sedum here, used to be known and probably still is as the ice plant, and now it's called Heliotrophium. I think I just still use sedum, I'm afraid. Now these are classic for just flopping from the middle out. So you can divide these plants in the autumn, they do really well from that. And actually this was taken from the mother plant this autumn, but I can see already it's starting to flop a bit. And what you do, I'm just going to take a third of the material off. With some plants you can then try and do some cuttings as well, and this will help it bulk up and get really compact, because there's nothing worse than a sedum that has just flopped. So literally going to get my secateurs, I'm going to go down, and it's just as if I'm taking cuttings, and I'm going to cut a third off. It seems really harsh, but honestly it'll be so much better. And finally this one that's already flopping over the edge. And what this will do is create a much stronger, healthier plant. And the bonus is you won't need to bother staking your plants, because they'll be doing it naturally, it will be supporting itself. Whenever you do any kind of pruning work on your plants, whether it's the Chelsea chop or just cutting back, general pruning, you are putting your plants under a bit of stress. And when they're under stress, they have to work that bit harder. So to help them, to give them a bit of a kickstart and also provide them with the nutrients that they're going to need to get really strong and healthy, I always recommend you give them a feed. In fact, I kind of find it essential. And I'm going to be using all-purpose organic plant food, because I'm an organic gardener, and I'm just going to put this in a watering can. Going to dilute it, never put a concentrated plant food directly onto your plants, and I'm going to water from the base my plants, and that will really give them a boost. Also this time of year we can often get, fingers crossed, quite dry and hot weather, and again that puts plants under stress. And most, well in fact all-purpose plant foods contain potassium, and we all think about potassium as being useful for our fruits and flowers, but actually potassium also helps protect plants and strengthens their resistance to extreme weathers, so drought and frost and cold. So always after cutting back, give your plants a really good feed.